I have moved countries. Again.
Hi, my name is Nelly and I recently moved to Tokyo in Japan. And before that, I lived in Australia for 6 years. And before that, I lived in the Netherlands for 3 years. And before that, I lived in South Korea for 1 year. And before that, I lived in Germany for 18 years, which is where I grew up. Except, well, 6 months that I spent in Costa Rica when I was 15. And this is really where it all started. You're wondering, why Costa Rica? Well, 14-year-old Nelly saw photos of dolphins, of volcanoes and rainforests in a travel magazine, and she decided that this is where she wanted to spend a school term abroad. My parents have always been traveling around a lot with us, but living in Costa Rica for 6 months really made me realize that traveling to a place and living in a place are two entirely different experiences. And at some point, I really started craving this experience of creating a deeper connection with a new place, of learning a new language and making local friends and developing a daily routine and so on. Over the years, it has somewhat really become a lifestyle for me, and this is why today I wanted to share 10 lessons I've learned from moving countries again, and again.
Your loved ones will never be all in the same place again. This is by far the hardest lesson I have learned, and I didn't realize it at first. This feeling hid behind all the excitement that comes with moving to a new place. It took years until it dawned to me that I will never be able to celebrate my birthdays with everyone that is dear to me, and I haven't spent Christmas with my family at home in years. Instead, I have been spending a lot of time on these special days in front of screens, FaceTiming and calling people from all over the world. Adding in a time difference of sometimes up to 10 hours definitely doesn't make it any easier. And with every new country I move to, it becomes more complicated, as if your heart is split into even smaller parts and you leave a little bit of it everywhere you go. You need a lot less stuff than you think. I want to preface this by saying that despite being someone who's quite conscious about the environment and consumption, I love stuff. Even though I buy a lot secondhand, reducing my overall consumption is something that doesn't come easily to me and something I'm constantly working on. Yet, when the moment to move comes and my 2 suitcases lay open before me, I find it relatively easy to decide what to bring and what to leave behind. And it is a good reminder every single time of what the things are I really need and use. Learning the language will open many doors and give you a better experience. Yes, translation apps such as Google Translator are great and have saved me many times. But solely relying on it when living abroad, even if you speak English, won't give you a great experience. Firstly, if you're planning to find a new job in your new country, speaking the language is often essential. Secondly, it will be a lot harder to make any local friends, and you might find yourself just hanging out with the international community. And lastly, learning the country's language will inevitably help you understand the culture better too. Every language has its unique expressions that are rooted in its culture, and I had so many aha moments connecting the dots between a new word or an expression I learned and cultural differences I observed. Vacationing in a country and living there are two very different things. I think this is an obvious one, but should still be mentioned. Going on holidays to a country for a few weeks is very different from actually having to look into long-term visas, work options, dealing with finding a rental, facing language barriers every day, being lonely because all your close friends are back home, and all the daily admin that comes with life. You might fall in love with a country, and then you have to leave. It isn't always possible to stay in a country, or not stay as long as you want to. Timing and visa restrictions probably play the biggest role in this. When I moved to Costa Rica, it was clear from the beginning that I would only be there for 6 months. I took part in a high school abroad program in my second high school year, and of course had to return to finish high school. I lived with a lovely host family and went to a local school, and although the beginnings were quite hard with me speaking hardly any Spanish, I quickly got the hang of it and I made some really close friends. When my time was up, my mom came to visit me and we spent a few days with my host family before traveling around and eventually leaving Costa Rica. When we left my host family's home, I suddenly had to start crying uncontrollably. and felt an overwhelming sadness, realizing I won't see these people I had gotten so close to and spent time at all my favorite places for a really long time. Dating apps are great to make friends abroad. The number one question I've been asked to answer in this video is, how do you make friends in a new country? And of course, the answer isn't straightforward and it really depends on your personality. I'd consider myself rather introverted. I find it hard to just go up to people in public places and strike up a conversation. But at first, I thought this is the only option. When I had first arrived in Australia, I was determined to go out by myself on one of my first nights and make friends out in the wild. So I went to the bar and clubbing district near where I lived without a concrete plan and absolutely terrified. Well, this is the story of how I became friends with this all-male soccer team that had just won a game and was out to celebrate. Still, my anxiety levels were through the roof when I first ventured out and I thought, there must be other ways. That's when I found out that Bumble, a popular dating app, has a version called Bumble BFF, which people use to find friends. I gave it a go and it proved to be one of the best ways for me to find amazing, long-lasting friendships. What I liked about it is that you already get a little overview of people's interests, and while it's not always enough to determine whether someone is for you or not, I definitely found it helpful. Another great way is, of course, to make friends by joining local groups and clubs that align with your hobbies and interests. From joining a language school to take dance classes to go to a book club, this is a good way to make friends in a more natural environment while already knowing you have something in common. Not all passports are created equally. The more I traveled and moved around, the more I came to realize this, and the more appreciation I have for my German passport. These days, I feel incredibly lucky to have a passport that allows me to travel and work freely in most of the EU, and even outside, Germany has lots of great agreements with countries. From working holiday visas to student visas, there are lots of options to spend time in a different country. But not everyone is that lucky. I'm really grateful that I can have this lifestyle, and at the same time, I find it unfair that other people cannot enjoy the same privileges just because they were born in a different country. Already knowing someone in the country you're moving to is a huge advantage. Moving to a new country by yourself can be a little bit scary and daunting, and I have been very lucky that for most of my moves, I already knew someone in the country I moved to. First of all, it's great to have a friend when everything is unfamiliar and you are yet to find your people in a new place. But it can also be really helpful for more practical reasons. Sometimes it can be really hard to find a rental as a foreigner, especially if you don't speak the language very well yet. Don't be afraid to ask your local friend for help, and make sure to treat them to a nice meal for their help once you arrive. Home can be anywhere. It sounds cliche, but at the end of the day, home really is where your heart is. The ingredients needed to make a place feel like home may differ from person to person, but here are mine. A small but close circle of loved ones, a cozy place to stay that you can make your own, no matter how big or small, green spaces, finding ways to continue my hobbies, and a few local cafes and restaurants I really like.
Filming.